Today we will be discussing circles. Specifically, we will be discussing the circumference and area of a circle. So a circle has a center, the point in the direct middle of the interior of the circle. And we know that the distance between the center and the edge of the circle is called the radius. And that is designated by the letter R. Now we also have another length within the circle, and that is if we were to go from edge to edge of the circle and it goes right through the center, that is called the diameter, and that is indicated by a lowercase d. So the radius, if we multiplied the radius times 2, we would get the denominator, the diameter. So the diameter is 2 times the radius. Or we could also say that 1/2 the diameter is the radius. So 2 radius equals diameter, or radius equals 1/2 the diameter. We may need to use those in the future. So the first equation that we will be using, first formula, is for the circumference. The circumference is the distance around the circle. That's indicated by a capital letter C for circumference. That is indicated 2 ways. You can either say pi times the diameter or 2 times pi times the radius, 2 pi r. So just remember, as we said over here, 2r equals d. So here's the 2r equals d. And pi is a number. It is a non-repeating, non-ending decimal, 3.1415926, blah, 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 blah. And we sometimes approximate it with a decimal, sometimes with 3.14, sometimes with a fraction, usually 22/7. And if you would punch 22/7 into your calculator, you would get something really close to 3.1415-ish. We just have to make sure what the directions the problems tell us. Okay, so to give us some sort of examples, say that we had a radius of 4. And I wanted to find the circumference, the distance around this particular circle. So I'm given the radius. I'm just going to use this pi d. So circumference equals pi d. And my diameter is 2 times that radius. So it's going to be 8. So it's going to be 8 times pi. And what is conventional is we look at this, we usually write 8 pi. It just looks better, okay? This is the exact distance around, 8 pi. Now, if we were to say, estimate it to the nearest tenth, we might use 3.14. So we would say 8 times 3.14, and we would get an approximation. I make the squiggly marks. And if I multiply 8 times 3.14, I get 25.12. So 25.1 units. Now, what happens if you're given a diameter? Say that let's do another problem. Say that you're given that the diameter equals 6. The diameter equals 6. What is the circumference? So your circumference is pi d, so we say pi times 6. And it just looks better that when you write the 6 first. But then we can approximate it using 3.14. 6 times 3.14 is 18.84. So it's approximately equal to 18.8 units. So now, not only can we find the circumference, but we can find the area. That means how much of this surface is covered. And that is indicated by a capital letter A for area. And that formula is pi r squared. Pi r squared. So we take the radius and we square it. In other words, we multiply it by itself, and then we multiply it by pi. So let's take our 2 examples we had over here. The first one we had a radius of 4. So if our radius equals 4, then we have pi times 4 squared. And 4 times 4, whoops, I don't need it there. 4 times 4 is 16. So it's pi times 16. But it looks best if we say 16 pi. This is the exact area. And that would be units squared. Area is always done in square units. If we wanted to approximate it, we would say 16 times 3.14. And that is, oops, I mistyped something. 16 times 3.14. And that is estimated or rounded to the nearest tenth, 50.2 square units. Now let's look at the other one. When we said if our diameter equals 6, we have to be very careful about what we plug in. This is the radius. So if our diameter equals 6, the radius is half the diameter. So I'm putting in 3 here. This would be pi times 3 squared. 3 squared is 9. And we always put the number first. So 9 pi units squared is the exact area. And if we approximate it, 9 times 3.14, that's approximately equal to 28.3 square units. And that is how to find the area and circumference of circles.